I'm Whitney Baker, coach, facilitator, meditation teacher, and writer. Electric Ideas is for women, especially mothers, who are done disappearing inside their responsibilities. If you're holding everything together but running on empty or feeling disconnected from your needs and desires, this is a place to come back to yourself. If you're ready to feel alive again in the messy middle of real life, you're in the right place. Let's spark something. Welcome back to Electric Ideas. I'm your host, Whitney Baker. Before we dive into today's episode, I want to make sure to wish all of the mothers in my community an early Happy Mother's Day. I hope you're able to speak up and let the people who love you know what would make it feel like a really good day for you, even if that means some alone time or you'd rather have a healthy meal prepared versus a rando dessert that you don't even want, but your kids just want. And I also hope you can minimally take a day off from all of the mom logistics and give yourself some much deserved love and appreciation. I wanted to have today's guest, Meg Sylvester, a multi-passionate creative speaker, author, and facilitator on the show today because her work is right up my alley and super aligned. She talks a lot about something I agree with, which is while motherhood is both wonderful and expansive, it can also leave you feeling stuck and oftentimes a little lackluster. We're going to dive into her book in this conversation called The Mindful Mom. And given that this conversation is intentionally shared before Mother's Day, I thought I'd share a quick snippet from the beginning of the book. Meg writes, "Motherhood and personal growth do not have to be separate things. Your kids will notice you dancing in the kitchen. They'll see you prioritizing your own joy. And when they do, they'll learn that it's safe to do the same for themselves. Transformation doesn't have to wait for perfect conditions. It lives in the real, messy, everyday moments." I could not agree more, which is why I'm so excited to dive into this conversation with Meg. She's worked with brands like Free People, Proper Hotel, and Aviator Nation, and inspired audiences at South by Southwest, Daybreaker, Life is Beautiful Festival, and beyond. She has been featured in a slew of publications and has a wealth of wisdom to share. Just a reminder, if you are a mother who is ready to feel lit up and alive right in the messy middle of motherhood, I do have a handful of one-on-one coaching spots available yet this spring. Right now, I'm offering 15-minute spark conversations, which are really quick, fun chemistry checks to see what's going on, what support you might be seeking. You can book a spark call in the show notes below, or alternatively, if you are a mom who is ready to feel more self-connected, to remember who she is outside the roles she plays, and you're ready to melt into someone else's structure and support, you can just DM me on Instagram. Drop me a line at @WhitneyWoman, and we will start the conversation there. All right, I'm so excited. You're going to love this conversation. Enjoy. Hi, Meg. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you.
I want to start by reading a little snippet to ground us into your work. So you wrote, "I spent years trying to get life right. I read the books, did the meditations, journaled my inner child into exhaustion, and chased every possible path to clarity and healing. But instead of feeling free, I felt tangled, trapped in the pursuit of being my best self, like peace was something I had to earn through sheer effort. I know a lot of women in this community are here for a reason. They want to feel lit up and expanded. And I'm wondering what the unlock was for you that allowed you to shift from this striving or feeling almost not enoughness is what's coming through for me to more of a welcoming and embrace or a remembering is kind of what the shift feels like for me."
Yeah, it was a sigh of relief. And it wasn't like this moment, the aha, that everything snapped into place. It was a slow burn, a looking around the self-development world, a looking at my stack of books by the bedside, and a looking at my just posts that I was engaging with and things that I was searching. And, this build up to when I was like, when is it going to be enough? This is a never ending hamster wheel of self development that I'm on. And what if I just stopped? What if I just took a break and allowed myself to just be and let that be okay? Even though I know I'm not perfectly healed and all the puzzle pieces are finally in place, even though I know that, what would happen if I just put it down and appreciated it, but put it down? And it did. It felt like a huge sigh of relief. I allowed myself to start listening to music that wasn't high vibration, again. And even though, what is that really? I allowed myself to, this sounds silly, but getting my nails done again. And before that, I had kind of labeled everything of this is spiritual, looking, and this is not. And this is the high frequency, and this is not. And it's exhausting. So yeah, just this build up to this letting go. And it was life changing.
I feel that when you're talking about it, it seems almost like you had this personal development journey as this pillar in your life that somehow started cutting you off from your own life.
Yeah, cutting me off from my sparkle and razzle dazzle, what made me. And the way I like to talk about it sometimes is, and I don't resent myself for doing that, because I'm someone, I go all in. I'm like, oh, we're doing spiritual self-development. Okay, let's go. But for me, it was like, I had to swing all the way over to one side of the pendulum and kind of wipe the slate clean, if you will, and then come back to the middle and find myself again and allow myself to find myself again. So it was like getting lost in order to find my way back.
Right.
Which is all part of the journey.
Right. And we're going to get into all kinds of practices and conversations from your beautiful book, but it feels like you had to find a way to integrate it into what was true and true for you in your day-to-day life versus performing it almost.
Yes, this performative spirituality. Yeah. Which was interesting because at the time when I was really steeped in all of that, it didn't feel performative. It felt very true, until it didn't.
Well, good for you for having the courage to listen and adapt and shift, which is something that you'll have a lot of lessons to share with us. One of the shifts that you talk about in the beginning of the book, what I appreciate is someone who also teaches connecting to yourself. I know a lot of us have done the connection with your highest self. I don't like the word best self, but I couldn't articulate it until you did. So I'll be honest, I appreciate you had this small substitute in word of connecting with your favorite self instead. And even that small language choice blew some doors open for you. Tell me about that.
Big time. Well, I'm a big believer in the fact that our words really do paint our world, and our word choices, I get to, or I have to, things like that. They really, on a subconscious level, shape how we move throughout the world. And the more I started sitting with this idea and this notion of best self or highest self, it feels very rooted in the same system that we're trying to soften and step away from, this kind of patriarchal, linear pursuit of achievement. And when you talk about best or highest self, in your mind, it is this kind of ascension to the top tier that you can be, And it just, for a while, best self, highest self, it served me until it didn't, And I started thinking about who I love myself as. And it's this woman who's dancing in the kitchen to reggaeton, working and, wearing cute little outfits and going to dinner with the girls. And it's just like, this is my favorite life. And so this kind of shift from best self, highest self to just favorite, it feels more, in my mind and in my body, it feels more circular and more all-encompassing than this never-ending quest to get to highest and best. And also, I recognize that when I'm talking about favorite self, it is essentially the best and highest self. It's just that tweak,
Yeah, no, I mean, words matter to me too. And it was a tweak
Hmm.
that I was glad to be introduced to. It kind of speaks more into just like reconnecting with that person that's always been there, that's always there versus like looking to become something you're not.
Yeah.
It's a
Hmm.
shift. And I think it's
Hmm.
empowering. What I do know is joy and
Hmm.
reconnecting with your joy. Like you said, okay, you can be a spiritual person who's twerking on the counter. If that's what
Right.
feels true for you, just
Right.
like
Yeah.
open it
Uh-huh.
up. You've said that joy isn't something that happens to you. It's a state of mind you cultivate. And I see lots of women, especially mothers, who get stuck in an autopilot way of being that it's kind of moving through their days with a lot of gripping and forcing and just what's next, tasking. What do you think we might be cutting ourselves off from?
Yeah. Ease. And in my book, there is a prompt where I paint the picture of ease being the soil where joy can bloom. And when we are gripping and controlling and trying to manipulate an outcome, just even those words that I'm saying, it creates this hardness, this rigidity. And when we can just soften our body, soften our minds, just even ask, like, how can I let this moment be 1% easier? Maybe that's unclenching my jaw, you know? Maybe that's saying, you know what? It's okay, honey. You don't have to wear these pants. You can wear those pants that you want to wear, even though they're the same gray pants you've worn 12 days in a row, you know? And I'm sure all the moms out there know what I'm talking about. But it's just, yeah, how can I make this easier? And then knowing that joy is honestly an openness, it's receptivity, it's a noticing. It's not forcing a particular result and then saying this result will make me feel joyful, because you can look around and see these really cool things happening to people and they're not joyful. You can see, for example, in my daily life, when I walk past the tulips that are blooming right now, or I see a little squirrel running by with something in his mouth, it brings me such joy. And I'm not always in the receptive mode of joy, my goodness, but it's a softening, it's an ease, it's a noticing. And joy truly is, it's a state of mind. It's not a thing that happens to you. It's a state of mind. It's an allowing, it's a softening of the mind, body, and spirit.
That really resonates with me. And even as you're saying that, I picture times because it's a practice. I'm sure
It
even though both of
totally
us
is.
teach
Yeah.
these things, it's always we're humans and
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
but I picture when I've been self-tending and aware and then I go for a walk and same, I'm like, oh my gosh, look at this explosion of colors. Or I look up and I see, a tulip tree that I would have not
Hmm.
noticed. And that energy is a lot different than, if you're like angrily and you're like texting someone as you walk out the door and you're
Hmm.
like,
Yeah.
it's like, I think that the reception is what's coming up for me because
Hmm.
I think a lot of women are like, well, I don't know what even makes me happy anymore. And that's like, you're asking a different question. You're
Hmm.
asking how you shift your way of being.
Right. Instead of what makes you happy, it's, yeah, stop looking for the things to make you happy. And yeah, like just when, if you constantly drive through a neighborhood and then one day you take a walk through the neighborhood, you're like, oh my God, I didn't notice this house and that detail in this house, or chickens live in this yard, or you notice when you slow down. And
Yeah.
so really kind of looking to your body, because you can tell when your body is in that non-receptive state. It's hard, your jaw is clenched, you're moving through everything really quickly. So yeah, to bring it back to what you said, I don't know what makes me happy anymore. Well, great, you don't need to know what makes you happy. You just need to slow down in order to start noticing things.
Yes. One of the things that I enjoyed about your book was this idea of flirting with life, because
Hmm.
just even saying that word out loud makes me feel a little fun and free. Just what we're talking about, like being in relationship. So, what might this look like?
Yeah. Well, and we all flirt differently. I like engaging in some witty banter and a little noticing. So for me, again, just to take it to something really basic again, going on a walk. It's noticing. It's, oh, you did that for me, huh? And like, if you can't tell, I'm obsessed with squirrels. So like when the squirrels run across my path, it's like saying hi to them and getting in this flirtatious banter with life. And I know that sounds really abstract, but really take yourself on a walk and just set the intention of, I want to flirt back with what I see, and it's again, noticing the trees, noticing if you stop and grab a coffee, really getting sensual with it. And again, that's using all five senses, not necessarily being sexy with it, but you can't be if you want, but yeah, again, it's a mindset of what if I were always flirting with the universe and the universe were flirting back with me, and we're just in this constant kind of banter and flirtation, and there's tension that feels really good. And so again, just kind of thinking, well, if you were, flirting with someone, what is that energy? And only you can kind of harness that and know that. So yeah, just start asking yourself those questions. And again, making it really basic. Go on a walk, go and sit at a cafe with a cup of coffee and just ask, what would it feel like if I were in this flirtatious relationship with the world around me right now?
Yeah, it invites fun. It's fun. And I think that when you're in that energy, you're more willing to talk to someone different, meet someone new, have a pattern interrupt that a lot of moms would probably appreciate.
Yeah. And, I think everyone listening probably knows this, but I'm just going to say this isn't like leading to romantic anything,
Yes.
like, you're not going to get into a romantic relationship with a tree, but it is. It's an appreciation, this lightheartedness, this levity to the interactions you have with the world around you. And it creates more openness for that spark and spontaneity that we all crave when we're stuck in a rut.
It makes sense to me because you've also said, and you say in your book, that you think joy is a frequency. So how does this flirtation with the world and nature help us step into the frequency of joy?
Yeah. And just to kind of explain what I mean by this, because even though I specifically use those words, I can get annoyed with spiritual and self-development speak that is super esoteric and abstract. Okay, well, what does that actually mean? Think about music. When you listen to certain songs, there are certain songs that just put you into a state, whether it's melancholy and you all of a sudden want to write poetry, or, something super fun and you're just like all of a sudden want to roll the windows down and like sing at the top of your lungs or dance, or if it all of a sudden makes you want to like text all of your friends, like, let's hang out. That music is putting you into a particular frequency, a particular state of being to make that feel more real for you. And so when you're in this state of joy, this state of noticing and softness and flirtation and receptivity, it is this particular frequency that you are existing at. And when you're existing at a particular frequency, it invites more in. And also, to give some more context to it, if you're invited over to someone's house for a dinner party and you walk in the door, you can tell if the couple or whomever that invited you over, what was going on before you walked in the door. Nothing needs to be said, but you can tell if there was a fight. You can tell if there was a disagreement. You can tell if they were dancing around the dining room, setting up the table, whatever. You can feel that. It is a palpable frequency. And it's been studied by institutes like HeartMath that you can feel energy from 3 feet away from someone's heart space. So it truly is a frequency. That's not abstract thinking or theoretical. It's real and it's felt. And so when you're emitting this spaciousness and this ease by first noticing how your body feels, saying, can I soften this? Can I feel more connected to my body instead of all this swirly whirly, in my head? You really do begin emitting a different frequency that things just start happening that are more delightful for you.
Thank you for bringing that down to earth. I really appreciate that. So I know that we both honor the realistic spectrum of human emotions, but I do feel like we have more choice than sometimes we give ourselves credit for. And I found through this work that I can notice when I am not broadcasting what I want to broadcast more quickly, because I've developed that relationship with myself. And it's not to say that any feeling or emotion is wrong, but sometimes when I have earlier awareness, and don't let it run away with itself. It's just healthier for me. What do you do in times where you feel like you're not in the frequency that you want to hold? How do you make your shift back to getting closer to your favorite self?
Yeah, I've got all sorts of tools. But first of all, I want to acknowledge that this became a lot easier to shift my frame of mind once I worked with a medical practitioner who looked at my hormones, because I had a period, a year or so, where I noticed I had all the tools, but I just felt stuck, like I was stuck in a swamp. And I would try and pull the tools, dancing, painting, writing, going for a walk. And they helped a little bit, but not a lot. And then I went to a medical practitioner, had a blood test, and saw that my body was no longer making testosterone. And so I, talked to the practitioner about my options. I started, a treatment to get my testosterone levels back where they needed to be. And it became a lot easier to get myself to a brighter frame of mind. So I want to first of all acknowledge that you can have all the tools and all the wisdom and all the awareness. However, sometimes if there's a deeper need in the body, it might be harder to pull yourself out of the muck when the body is needing some support. And I always advise, work with a medical practitioner to get that right support. Don't look at what an influencer is doing and then do what she's doing. So I want to acknowledge that, because for a while I felt really broken because I had all the tools and I had all the awareness and I could not pull myself out. And I was reading all the books and I was like, what is wrong with me? And 3 weeks after I started treatment to get my testosterone back, I was like, oh my God, I'm alive again, So no matter how much dancing or music or painting or whatever, it wasn't going to be enough to really pull me from those depths. So I just want to acknowledge and honor that for anyone listening that has tried all the things, and all the self-development and awareness is moving the needle, but just a little bit. Maybe go talk to a doctor, someone who specializes in women's health and hormones, and just get a good, clear picture of what's going on. So I think in that answer, I kind of touched on my tools, but for me in particular, dancing is so therapeutic for me. So I teach a weekly dance class. I turn the music on in my kitchen and just dance with wild abandon. That's what feels good to me. Sometimes if I'm feeling really kind of melancholic or working with grief, I've had family members pass away. So, that of course surfaces. And for me, that would be like writing and finding the perfect words to describe how I feel. And it's very cathartic. Also like color therapy. So sometimes if I have a particular color that is really resonating, I'll just get a canvas and paint just that color on a canvas, or mix colors to paint to find that exact color. So it's kind of the same as poetry. It's just mixing colors to find that exact representation of how I feel. But going on a walk, my God. And also the most underrated tool of all is sleep. Just getting enough sleep instead of waking up at 5 a.m. to do my affirmations and meditations. Nope, I'm just going to sleep. I'm just going to sleep into the last possible moment that I can. And we forget that sleep is like the most effective tool of all when it comes to, feeling your best. It's just getting enough sleep. And I know that's easier said than done when we've got little ones. Giving yourself grace of getting a full 8 hours is not just realistic, but it doesn't even have to be sleep, but just sitting there and zoning out and not putting the pressure on yourself to be productive every moment, but just giving your body, if you can't take a nap, if you can't get a full 8 hours, just giving your body a moment to just unplug for a second.
Yes. Thank you for saying that. I definitely have to remind some of my clients that scrolling is not rest. It's still draining a lot of cognitive resources.
It's draining a lot.
It's not restorative. So thank you for touching on that. I do want to ask, in your journey, because you're such a multi-creative, you're a mother, And you just mentioned, true rest, not
Mhm.
scrolling, prioritizing sleep. How is prioritizing real rest, real restoration, real sleep reciprocal with your ability to create?
Oh my gosh, it's when I am ragged, when I am tired, I'm a toddler. I'm crazy and everything is a really big deal and everything sends me spiraling. And it's hard to create from that place. It's hard to tap into inspiration. It's also hard to just show up. So by that, I mean, being creative, sometimes we think, well, I'll strike when the iron's hot. I'll strike when the inspiration comes and I'll be available for it. But it's also a practice in just showing up to the page, to the canvas, to the whatever your medium is, even when the inspiration isn't there, and just, honoring that. But when you're tired, when you don't have sufficient rest, when your nervous system is all kinked up and fried, it's hard for things to flow. It's really hard. So I notice a huge difference when I'm not rested and when I'm over caffeinated because of it. I'm jittery from head to toe, inside and out. It's tough.
Is there anything you've learned about honoring kind of your yin and yang energy that you
Yeah.
wish you would have known sooner in life?
Yes. God, I have so much to say about this. So I, earlier in life, didn't really understand that we go through phases of yin and yang. So yin being the slow, receptive, intuitive, yang being the action oriented, the structured, the fire energy. And in Western civilization and Western culture, we very much honor the yang of go, produce, create, whatever. And I love that energy. I love being productive. I love digging in and doing it. I love it. But we're not always there. And that is natural. It's nothing's wrong with you when you shift into a yin phase. You're supposed to be there, especially as women who are still cycling. We've got four phases, and those are cycling through yin and yang. And so what's nice is to start really tapping in and noticing, where am I in my cycle? Am I in a yin or a yang phase? And if you're no longer cycling or you don't have a cycle, you're still moving through these phases. And so sometimes when we're in a yin phase, we try to pull ourselves out of it by participating in really yang activities. So going for a run or a power yoga class or, kickboxing or something. And your body's, what? No. And so when you're in the yin phases, it's nice to compliment and to say, I love and accept this phase as well. And, go on a slower walk, go to a yin yoga class, go to a sound healing. But then it is important when you're in the yang phase to support that fire and that movement. And so if you're someone I go to hot yoga every day, no matter what, maybe think about, can I have some flexibility and maybe go to a different type of class when I'm in a particular phase, instead of just being like, nope, can't do it. I don't feel well today. It's like, how can you show up for yourself instead of trying to push through and force through these different phases with something that doesn't actually match, what your body's craving and calling for.
That makes complete sense. I mean, I think it is a bold act of self honoring and trust to take the, hit work off. This is just a small example, but sometimes it's just, well, no, this is what I always do. Okay, well, what if your body could use some restorative yoga today instead?
Yeah.
And when you get your energy back, you go back to that. I think that there is a place for both. I think women feel almost distrustful of the inside.
They do. Well, how is it going to burn calories, or what's the point?
But not even in movement, but in life too. And I wonder about that as a creator, because I'm sure you've had to learn that. For example, for myself, there's times when I, even though I have a very public facing work and I'm connecting with people and I'm creating and I'm writing, I'm doing all the things, there's times when I just have these patterns of inward, like I'm not feeling called. And I think you have to discern whether you're just avoiding it or not. But
Yeah.
I think that when you start to trust it and you know that you'll come out on the other side,
Yeah.
it just becomes part of your life and it's not a panic.
Right. There's nothing wrong. And again, it does take a level of discernment to say, well, is this actually an avoidant behavior right now? Am I really resisting and checking out? Or am I truly just in an integration period, in a period where I'm meant to be going underground so that I can bloom again, and there's nothing that needs to be fixed about it. It's just rest, just
Yes.
slow down. And that's when the inspiration comes, and starts percolating so that when the fire comes again, you can take action and move forward.
Yes. A pregnant pause. I like that.
Yeah.
We brought up the avoidance. There's some discernment there. But one thing I liked about your book is you talked about the blame game. Because I like to think about, I feel like for, this favorite self it's probably a mix of not only what you add, but what you remove. And
Yeah.
I think that, it's easy for moms to point at I've got to get my kids all the places and oh crap, my husband didn't put the leftovers away and I got to feed the guinea pigs. Maybe that's just me. It's, but it's just easy to point our fingers when we feel overwhelmed or if we feel stuck. And I think it causes a lot of very talented, creative women to not share their light.
Yep. And blame, I notice when I get in a moment or a season of blame and that resentment, but, really, who can I blame this on? I don't feel satisfied right now. So who can I blame this on? When you notice that you're trying to find blame, and sometimes it might, maybe there is someone to blame, I don't want to take that away. But when you notice you're really, rummaging through to try and point a finger, this is an indication that you feel powerless in this area of your life. And so while it may feel very true to be able to point a finger, yes, you do have to get the kids here and there. And that does take up your whole evening. That's true. But that need for blame is pointing to a need to reclaim some power somewhere, to feel empowered somewhere. So you can just kind of ask yourself, okay, well, right now in this moment, what can I do that would feel empowering? Maybe it's as simple as picking the music or telling your kids to turn the TV off because it's frying your nervous system, or making what you want for dinner instead of what your kids want. Just what can I do just in this moment? You don't have to sift through your entire life and, how can I really empower my whole life? It's okay. Maybe you do that in a therapy session, but right now in this moment, I've noticed that I'm really grappling and looking to blame something. So in this moment, a little pivot, a little reframe, what can I do that would feel empowered right now? And just start there. But blame, it really is, it's showing you something. So instead of continuing down that path, because then what? Once you find the person to blame, then what? Then what? What are you going to do? Just be mad at them?
Yeah.
Okay, if you want, but then also find something in this moment that can help you take your power back, even if it's making yourself a cup of tea.
Oh, I love this. And I want to reflect this back to you a little bit because what you said just it rings true to me. You're blaming because you feel powerless and there are real responsibilities. And I don't want to negate any of that, especially for mothers. But this is also bringing me back to full circle to our joy as a frequency conversation. And I feel like once we get on the blame train and we go deeper and deeper,
it's not a joyful one. No, it's not joyful.
I see my shoulders creeping up even talking about it. It's like, I think just pausing, having the wisdom to pause and be like, okay, why am I feeling urged to jump into the blame game?
Yeah.
Not enough might just be like, okay, what can I do right now? Okay, I can get out my pretty pottery and I can have a jasmine tea and I can have a me moment.
Yes. And I like that word urged because there is that sense of urgency that comes from the ego of now, blame someone now, and whereas like our intuition and a higher power, whatever it is that you believe in, always feels much softer and more like an invitation than this like hard urgency.
Mhm.
And so that also is a good way for you to discern, am I in the energy of the ego, which isn't always bad. There's many good things that come from the ego, but yeah, does it feel urgent and hard and must you now, or like it's like stuck in like a kink in a hose, or does it feel like there's an invitation being offered that's soft and energizing?
How do you stay curious and open to inspiration in a world that is often vying for your attention?
Yeah. Well, curiosity is my superpower. And saying yes to my curiosity is a skill that I have practiced over more than a decade. And the first thing that I had to work on was removing shame around following my curiosity. Shame that came from a family of people who did one thing and did it well. And like my little brother, like essentially came out of the womb and was like, I want to be a lawyer. And now he is. And my parents were both very successful business owners, and they had their like specialty, their practices. And I was surrounded by people like that. But I was always like, there's something wrong with me because I don't know what I want to do. And I don't know if I'll ever know what I want to do. And I just want to experience all the experiences. And I want to soak the nectar up of life in all these different places. And I felt a lot of shame around that for a long time, because that just didn't seem like the blueprint everyone else was following. And it felt very immature and childish. And then I don't know, there was just, again, this kind of a slow coming to this realization of, wait, well, if there can be extroverts and introverts, and there can be type A and type B, then why can't there be linear path people and multi-passionate path people? And then it was like, well, what if I'm one of those multi-passionate people? And so now I always say I have bumblebee temperament. Like I go to a flower, and my curiosity leads me there, and I go and I soak up everything there is. And then I allow myself to put it down and then move on. And then just, following my curiosity. But I've also had to learn to really discern if it's my curiosity or a really strong, powerful suggestion that seems sparkly and fun given by someone else, that I think, oh, well, that sounds lucrative and productive, and it feels more like I feel like I should be doing this instead of, oh, yay, I'm excited about this. So if you're listening and you're someone who has labeled yourself scattered, or why can't I just be like a normal person and, do the thing and have the job and it just be enough? You're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. You just have a different blueprint than the linear path people. And the linear path people, there's nothing wrong with them, and they're living the life they're supposed to live too. But it takes a lot of like releasing of shame to really accept your multi-passionate nature.
It's very empowering. I'm so glad you talked about this, because I wouldn't have chosen the word shame. And the fact that you're like that, in touch with that tender part of yourself. Because I've had times in my life as someone who has creative energy across multiple areas where people are like, well, you have to pick a lane. And I'm like, I don't want a lane. That's never how, But then you start internalizing it a little bit. Gosh, am I a dilettante? Am I scattered? Or you have to like really realize that it's possible to be wired differently.
And it can be a superpower. It really can. Yes. And it also can, I want to acknowledge, it can be exhausting to be a multi-passionate. And I do get jealous of people like my brother that are just like, yep, this is the thing. I'm like, God, I must feel real nice, but it's who we are. Yeah.
And I think that ultimately we both know, if we're not honoring our truth, nothing's going to feel easeful and joyful, right?
Yeah.
We're coming up on time. I just want to go a little bit deeper into creativity because, based on what we were just talking about and all you've accomplished with your life, including your beautiful new book, I think you have a really great perspective. You wrote, "You were never not creative. you just learned to question it. Maybe someone told you your creation wasn't good. Maybe it got graded, judged, ignored. Maybe you started believing creativity belonged to other people with training, skill, or time. But creativity isn't about talent or recognition. It's a life force. I really liked that because I think even, especially as adults and then layer on motherhood, I think a lot of women stop creating unless there's some end game. And in my experience, and then working with many clients who are in this situation, I found that they're blocking themselves from a lot of joy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And when you look at toddlers, they're creating all the time. They're taking a stick and dipping it in water and drawing circles on the ground, or, or coloring like a big blob on a paper. That is creativity. The creativity is simply taking what's inside and expressing. And it's not that complicated. But we as a culture have labeled creativity as, well, you're creative if you're creating something that fits into this category and then is deemed good by the critics, the powers that be. But you're creating all the time, like in the choices that you get dressed with, and when you're doing your hair, when you're doing your makeup, the way you pack your kids' lunches, the way you parent. And you're either just repeating and replicating what someone has told you to do, or you're being creative about it. And you're truly tapping into, what is it that wants to express from me? What's my version of this? My version, not the good version or the accepted version. What's my version? And everyone, I've worked with so many people that say, I don't have a creative bone in my body. And I'm like, I'm going to prove you wrong. Yes, you do. Because we all do. We all do. And yeah, it just, I know we're coming on time. So, I could talk about this for an hour, but am I replicating or am I doing my version? And just start asking yourself that with any medium. And it could start with getting dressed, because that's something you do every day. So start there.
Love that. Meg, I always end my episodes with an opportunity for reflection. So in this area of becoming more magnetic for joy, more receptive to joy and beauty and living creatively, no matter how that looks for us, what's one question women could be asking themselves more?
What's coming to mind is, how can I let this be easier? And that's something we said earlier during this, but it's just that one question, how can I let this be easier, can start softening everything. And that doesn't mean, how can I let this be easier for other people? That's people pleasing. How can I let this feel easier in my body right now?
I know that's going to land and be of service, as well as this whole conversation, for so many women in my community. So thank you. I encourage everyone to find Meg, to read her book. Tell us a little bit more about how we can connect with you.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram, and my book is called The Mindful Mom, and you can buy it wherever books are sold. My website is megsylvester.com. But yeah, if you've listened to this and anything resonated, I love receiving DMs from people. So I would love to hear from you. I answer everything. So yeah, I would really love to hear from you.
Wonderful. Meg, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. This was lovely.
I'm so glad you joined me today. If you're looking for more, feel free to connect with me on Instagram at @WhitneyWoman. And if you enjoyed the show, I invite you to support me by leaving a review or sharing it with a friend. Hope you have an inspired day.